Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today on GPCOA to BC Dimensions. Presenting today, we have Chris Mass from the TM Group.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. There we go. You should see GP. Can everybody see that? Can you see that, Allie?
Yep.
Okay. So I want to start in GP. This is GP 18. We all know in GP the account formats. So let's start with down here on the account formats. And I'm going to go down to administration, and we're going to come down here on the setup list to account formats. Now, I've logged into Fabricam. This is Microsoft's demo company that they've set up with demo data. In Fabricam, we have three segments. We have a division, an account, and a department. Sometimes that account one we call the main account or the natural account. And then in this case, there's two different outside segments. Now, I've worked with clients before that might have 4 or 5 or even 6 outside segments, depending on what it is that they need to track in their business. In GP, we even give these some definition. If I come down here to my segments, and let's look at our divisions. Here we can see that the divisions all have values. So I have accounting, administration, sales, consulting and training, etc. And if we look at department, we're going to see the same thing. That's the last 2 digits on the end. And not all of them have, in the demo data anyways, not all of them have descriptions, but we can certainly identify those. So in doing that then, let me make this a little smaller so we can see these windows. By doing that then, I can post to, if I come back here to financial and we go to the top, we can look at the accounts that show the divisions and the departments there. The lookup here is sorted by that first dimension. So I'm going to see all the zeros first, and it's pretty difficult to see. For example, if I get down into the income sections here, it's pretty difficult to see all of the accounts that might exist in 5600 or for a particular expense account, because it is sorted by that first segment. The only way I can really get that is if I get to a smart list. Now I've made one here, and if I get to financial and I get to counts, and I've made one for this demo that has the 3 segments segmented out. The filter is a little clunky. I have to hit search, and I have to say, well, what am I searching on? I'm searching on the main account, and where it might be equal to 5600. And there, now I can see all of the accounts for contract services, or maybe I would do 5100. Might have something different. And there I can see that account exists in all of the divisions, but really only one department. And where this becomes challenging is when I go to create a journal entry, and this screen looks familiar to everyone on the call, I'm sure. If I tab through these, and I'll give it a description. If I come down and I want to post to account 500, 5100, but I want to do department 2, as soon as I tab off of that, that doesn't exist. And I have to go create a whole new account just to have that combination, because the combinations of those outside segments are all combined in a single account record, which can get clunky. Conversely, when we get over to Business Central, in Business Central, the demo data is called Cronus. What we can do here is I can show the chart of accounts. It's under finance, chart of accounts. And in this case, the chart of accounts is really just a 5-digit number. I could search here for office, and it will find office supplies. I could search for salary, and it will find anything to do with salary. I could search for tax, and it's going to find all of my account numbers that have to do with tax. Search is much more user-friendly than it is in GP. So we're searching for the word tax. We're coming up with all the account numbers that contain the word tax. But you'll notice if I go back to supplies, I have one account for supplies expense. Whereas in GP, this account would be repeated for each division and each department. But here I only have one account. We can filter this list so I can come over here. I can click on filter. I could filter to where account category That's this column over here. Account category is income accounts. And there's all my income accounts. I could come over here, I'll shut my filter tab, I can clear the filter. If I want to do cost of goods sold, a little shortcut, I can say filter to this value. And now it's showing me all of the cost of goods sold accounts. Yep, it's going to go do that. We can filter those. That filtering capability exists throughout the system. Where we happen to be showing chart of accounts right now, which is fine. But if you're looking at a list of customers or a list of items, list of vendors, maybe a list of employees, a list of users, maybe you're looking at a list of historical transactions or a list of open invoices or even a list of checks that need to be cut. If you're looking at a list of anything, it can be filtered the same way I just filtered the chart. Similarly, on all of those lists, I can open a tab over here. I could add notes about this account. Maybe I have this account cost of materials. I could add a note about that. Other lists, customers, vendors, etc. lists are going to have more data inside this fast tab, but that concept again also exists throughout the system. Another concept you see here, I have this one bookmarked. What that means is that over on my home screen, I don't have to go through the menu to find it. I've bookmarked it. If I get back there, I've bookmarked it right here on my home tab, because that's a screen that I use quite often. But again, we're only showing the 5 digits. We're showing the current balance in the account and some other information about the account. The outside segments, or what GP would call outside segments, if I come back to this screen, division, department, okay, in Business Central, where that's going to be handled by something called a dimension. Now I'm going to come up here and I'm going to go back to my homepage. You don't have to. I do out of habit. I'm going to open up a search and I'm going to type the word dimension, or I'm at least going to start typing the word dimension. And sure enough, here it is, administrating dimensions. Once I get there, we're going to see all of these dimensions. These have been set up as dimensions. Business Central allows you, I think, 8 different dimensions if you want. And in the demo company from Microsoft, these are the dimensions that have been set up. I'm going to go ahead and bookmark this to show you how that works. I bookmarked it. And now when I go back, you'll see it's bookmarked right there. So I don't have to navigate, and I don't even have to search anymore either. Similar to GP, what we were doing, let me do is just pull up the equivalent. If I can remember where it was, right here, where I'm going to give these outside segments some values. Well, in Business Central, we're going to do that as well. I'm going to say dimension values. Here's all of the dimensions for area. What area of the world are we selling in? I could look at business group and dimension values, and we can see that there's some values on these. Customer group, dimension values. Now we'll come in here, we'll do a general journal. We'll just grab the monthly batch. So now we're going to come across here. I can say that this is a particular type of document. If it's just a general journal, just a general ledger entry, we're going to leave that as blank. I can have the system identify, or I can have the system assign document numbers, like journal entry numbers along the way, or I could configure my batch to leave that blank so that I have to fill it in every time. You can do that however you want. This is going to default to GL account. I could say that this is a customer or a vendor. That's a kind of a conceptual thing. But when I get over here, say I want to debit office expense. Again, I'm just going to type debit the office. I'm going to say office expense. It pulls in the account name. It allows me to override a description if I want. If you're using the multi-currency features of Business Central, you would have this field. I'm going to tab over again, type in an amount. We're not going to do a balancing account on this line. And now out here, I have all these dimensions that I would fill in. So what department is this? Debit for $100. It's sales. What customer group is it? It's the medium customer group. What business group is it? And I can populate these. These are not required fields. You don't have to fill them out. They can be blank. Or in your configuration settings, as you're implementing Business Central, maybe you want to make some of them required. Maybe department is a required dimension. And so now if I need to post, I don't have to worry about an account combination that doesn't exist, because these dimensions are mutually exclusive of the account number itself. I could come down here to the next line. And if that's office expense, I don't know, we're going to say we paid it in cash. So we paid it out of petty cash. And this is now a negative 100. Business Central deals in positives or debits, negatives or credits. That's kind of just something to get used to. We can add debit and credit field if you want to stick to traditional like that, if you want to be traditional. And now maybe I want to just repeat the same dimensions on this line. So I'm just going to hit F8 on all of these. Now that's ready to post. If I do a post and print, similar to GP where you can print an edit list of your batch before you post, here we're going to preview the posting. It's going to go ahead, it's going to say that it made 2 entries in the general ledger. What are those entries? And here they are, a debit and a credit. And if we come out here, we can see all the codes. So that's how the dimensions can be used. The concept extends to all dimensions on all transactions, whether it's a sales invoice or a cash receipt or fixed asset retirement. Those dimensions are available to be assigned to transactions across the board, and they're available. The way that manifests itself in the chart, let's go back to the chart. Remember, I had bookmarked it, so I only have to click it once. Here in the chart, if I find, just by way of example, I think I was going to do product sales. So if I highlight the product sales line, what we can do here is I can say balance by dimension. Well, which dimension do we want to analyze? I want to analyze the customer grouping. So I'll say, okay. And then I'll say show matrix. And that's going to think for a minute. And here we're seeing, we can look at purchase discounts. We can look at, where was the one we were looking at? Income statement. We were looking at product sales. So here I can see it's breaking down into the values of that dimension, because that's the dimension I told it I wanted to analyze. If I close here and I say I want to analyze a different dimension, I want to analyze department, I can certainly do that. And we'll say show matrix. And here we're going to see all of these account balances per department based on the value, based on the values that are in there. So here we can see product sales right there. And for some odd reason in the demo company, all the sales transactions are in the sales department. The Cronus has not assigned any sale transaction to purchasing products or production or administration, which probably makes sense. If we look at cost of goods, oh, that's in sales too. So it's kind of interesting how Microsoft is running their Cronus business. On that point though, let's go back to the chart and let's look at products, income of product sales. If I click on, just notice these are hyperlinks that I can click on. If I click on this, it's going to give me a list of all the transactions that make up that balance. And it's basically just a list of posted journal entries. You can see this up here, but it's pre-filtered by that account. It is sorted by posting date. And sure enough, we can see that this department code, yep, they're all sales. The next dimension, customer group, some are small customers, medium customers, large customers, you know, whatever. If we come over and look at some of the other dimensions, the business group might be home, office, whatever. It looks like they haven't really assigned a purchase code or a sales campaign code to these transactions. So an analysis of those dimensions wouldn't produce any data. The way this is going to show up on an income statement, if we come over to account schedules, is where we do that. I've got an income statement that we can look at the rows. No, I'm not going to make a copy. I just want to see it. So here's an income statement with the rows, and we can see here a row for each account. We have some totaling rows. This is where we're going to kind of format our financial statement. And we're showing the net change. Remember, credits are always negative in the system. We want to change the sign of these income accounts. Are we showing it? Yes, if any column has a value. Is it bold? You see that we're going to bold the the titles and the totals, that kind of thing. The other thing we can do is we want to edit the column layout. Let's do this one. Process, I want to edit this column layout, the net change one. Here on this one, I've set up this column layout to break out the different departments. Maybe I want to do another report where it breaks it out by some other dimension, a division or something like that. So if I come here and now we'll go ahead and run this, I'll say we're going to actually print this report. And here again, we'll go ahead and print it. And there we see that in this particular data, it's all in the sales department. That kind of describes how segments from what we would typically call segments in general ledger gets converted and is much more flexible with dimensions over in Business Central. And then once those dimensions are set up, we can start using those to post really any transactions. If we were to add a sales invoice, for example, we could add a sales invoice to, and I'll grab a customer. We'll just grab this customer. And it's asking me to take a tour. So when we're going to come down here, we'll give it a document number. You can see it's already given us a salesperson code based on the customer setup, but we might assign a campaign number. Yeah, we'll leave the other ones blank. When we come down here, we're going to sell an item. What item are we selling? Well, let's sell a desk. An Athens desk. From what location are we going to pull? How many desks are we selling? They're $1,000 each, a tax area code. And then as we get down here, we're going to have, again, these dimensions. It's a sales department. This customer is a medium. Again, pulling that from the customer card. So some of these defaults are in. Am I going to assign a business group? I could say this is the industrial business. Area code actually has to do with taxes, but maybe we have a purchaser code and we have a sales campaign. This is the winter campaign, and then I could post that. And that concept with those dimensions is going to flow through all of the through all of the modules. As you're receiving quantities, maybe your business model is that you're running projects. So you could assign if you're using jobs in Business Central, we call that the jobs module. If you're using that, then you could assign those jobs to specific dimensions. We can, in the chart of accounts, we can identify some accounts. We can identify on an account per account basis which dimensions are required and which ones are not. For example, in the balance sheet section of the chart of accounts, we might not require dimensions for everything. We might not require dimensions for a salesperson code on a cash account. That would seem silly. So we can define on an account by account basis which dimensions are required and which ones aren't throughout the chart. It's pretty simple to just convert over to using dimensions instead of account segment.
All right, thank you, Chris. If anyone has any questions, now would be the time to type them out in the questions box or the chat box. So if we want to give just a couple more minutes to see if we have any questions come up here.
In GP, we have account segments and we assign values to those account segments. And those values, those segments and values are knitted together in a single account record. That has to exist. And so you're constantly typing out all of the digits. In Business Central, those are broken up into different objects that provides flexibility and additional security if necessary. And just like in GP using Management Reporter, the financial statements can come out using those dimensions in the account scheduler. Business Central doesn't use Management Reporter. Business Central uses something called account schedules.
That was one of the questions that we got.
Oh, okay. Yep. It uses something called account schedules. We also find that our clients will use Power BI, or you could even use PopDoc.
Awesome. And then we have one more question. Can you add, delete, or modify dimensions and values of each dimension at any time?
Yes.
Perfect. Well, it looks like those are all of our questions for today. So thank you all, and
Thanks,
I hope-
everyone.
I hope you have a great rest of your day and week.